The James Show Podcast.
When it comes to our next senator, I've heard from you or other listeners a lot like you that they don't like John Cornyn and he needs to get the heck out. He's a rhino. He doesn't support your values. He doesn't want to make government smaller. Got it. So what I see from the people of Texas is Ken Paxton is killing it in the polls. Absolutely killing it in the polls. Now, you don't have to know anything about Ken Paxton on a micro level, like what's the nuance of his policy positions. You know enough information just by what you saw when they tried to take him out. And when you say they, like who's this uppercase they? Is that their pronouns? No, you know what I mean. The establishment of both the Republican and the Democrat Party tried to take him out with the impeachment. And do you realize how rare that move is? There's only been one other time when someone's been impeached out of the Texas government. That was Pa Ferguson over 100 years ago, the governor, Pa Ferguson. So they did something that was so hyper rare, and it's the same old result. If you're going to try and take out the king, you better not miss. Well, they tried to take him out. They couldn't. And now he's bigger and badder and stronger than ever because even the only halfway paying attention Texan knows that this guy stands against the political machine of both parties. And that's probably a good thing. Before you even get to the nuance of his policy, we see this is the guy that stand up. Because, look, when we talk about the two-party system, Republicans and Democrats with capital D's, capital R's, these are the people who get together. And it doesn't matter how you vote. They go down to Austin and they put in their guy for Speaker of the House. And you don't get property tax reform. You don't get lower property taxes. You don't get school choice. Oh, they just passed it. 100,000 kids might be eligible. That's not what we're talking about. That's not real school choice. Oh, yeah, but we signed a property tax relief bill. That's not what we're talking about. A handful of people who are already retired get a higher deduction and get it frozen. That's not what we're talking about. So it is this apparatus, the establishment of both parties, is the reason why you are so disappointed when you send representatives to Austin or D.C. and they keep growing government and they don't cut your taxes. They don't open up your, liberty-minded policies, whether it's school choice or, damn it, can I have my own straw choice too? But the GOP establishment likes Cornyn and they don't like Paxton. So they're not just going to let Ken Paxton waltz in. So you have the people who pay attention to this political stuff a lot more closely than you and me, noticing that some of the donors are going to go to Paxton because they think he's a done deal, but some of the donors are migrating toward Wesley Hunt. Wesley Hunt. Now, you may know that name, and he's kind of known in Texas. He's a fairly new congressional representative out of the Houston area. But I think, have we had him on the show before? I don't know if we've had him on the show. I know we've played some of his audio before, but here's a good example of how I know that this guy is being trotted out as possibly the next John Cornyn, or at least the establishment's attempt to replace John Cornyn. Wesley Hunt. He's being shopped around in the media. He's now showing up on the weekends on the big networks. In fact, he was on the Bill Maher show on Friday. And if he does well in these media carousels, just like Jasmine Crockett took advantage of the shine that they gave her, he might end up being the next replacement for John Cornyn. But here he is on Bill Maher.
When I think about January 6th and pardoning all the people who were involved in that insurrection.
Insurrection? How you have insurrection with no guns, though, Bill? That's like having. That's like making coffee.
They brought tons of guns.
Well, there's 400 guns currently in circulation. 40 million guns currently in circulation. One person was killed that day. It was Ashley Babbitt. She was a white unarmed person that was killed by a black Capitol police officer. Imagine if that had been the other way around. When I think of an insurrection as a war fighter, somebody that has seen some real nasty stuff, what people have to understand is that the summer of love leading up to that was something else. We're talking about $2 billion in damage. 200 cities had to go under curfew. 22 people lost their lives. And I understand that January 6th was a Democrats' white rhino, and they were going to run in that. They're going to win the next election. And Donald Trump is still president, last I checked.
Okay, so he's handling Bill Maher really good. I'm a little cautious here because we have seen other guys who are rising stars in the Republican Party system come out and totally disappoint us when they got in positions of power. I'm thinking of like a Dan Crenshaw, Houston-based as well. So maybe Wesley Hunt has a future. What he says is fairly positive. How is he going to govern if he gets some new reins of power? We don't know yet. Could it be worse than John Cornyn? That'd be really hard. Are you already confident of Ken Paxton? More confident than not confident. But I'm really bolstered by the fact that the establishment doesn't like this guy when he seems to be far and away the front runner. What is so bad about him that you can't just roll with him? I take that as a good sign. But if not John Cornyn, who? If not Ken Paxton, who? And I'm going to give you a list, just my short list of Texans that I think need to be put in this pipeline and need to be candidates in some office somewhere, because if we can start, rotating them off the bench and getting them some reps, they have a real shot at doing something positive should they choose to go the political route. It could be existing politicians. It could be like a Mark Cuban or a Joe Rogan. Let's talk about the great state of Texas for a second here, because we have a Senator John Cornyn who's not very popular with Texans and his voting constituency, and it looks like his Senate seat is up for grabs. Ken Paxton's actually winning in some of the polls. He's winning double digits in the Republican primary. And this is super important because when we talk about, what are we going to do about the rhinos or the deep state, or once they get in there, they do their own thing and vote in their own interest, forget all their campaign promises. That is resolved in the primary. That gripe that so many people have, this is where you fix it. But we have to start looking at who's sitting at the table here in Texas and kind of get on the same page about, look, I am not confident in politicians, but all of these suggestions are going to be where I'm leaning, because we have some untapped talent here, especially in Texas, but for good reason. There's a lot of these people, like when you say, well, who's a Texan that could be in the Senate that agrees with what you and I agree with, that has been in positions of power, and we see how they act and we see what their policy preferences are, and we see if they're really serious about stopping the growth of government, if actually cutting government, getting rid of giant swaths of government. And we just described Elon Musk. Hey, he's a Texan now. He counts as a Texan. I know he's from South Africa. I know he has an accent we're not that familiar with. I know he spent a lot of time in California, and he's sort of a recent convert to the ways of the Texan. But I doubt he would want to run for Senate or Congress. That would be a huge demotion for him. It just doesn't pay nearly as well. And it would take so much time and attention away from the things that he's doing. It's far more important. Sending someone to Mars is going to be more important than being the second ranking member on the House Ways and Means Committee. It just is. Another one, though, and I am cautious about this one because I'm not too sure of where his policy positions would fall in some cases. But another one, Joe Rogan. Highly influential. One of the most popular podcasts on planet Earth right now. Has the respect of many of the younger voters, and also the media world, the celebrity world. It's kind of hard to call him a racist, sexist, Nazi, bigot, homophobe when he was supporting Democrat candidates all the way up through Bernie Sanders. It wasn't until this second Donald Trump term that he even deigned to be associated with MAGA. And he doesn't call himself MAGA now. He's just a little open-minded about it. But that would, dude, what election would Joe Rogan lose in Texas? So he could pretty much pick a seat. Hell, he could run for governor if he wanted to. But let's get into some more who are more likely to do it, because it wouldn't be as much of a pay cut compared to Joe Rogan or Elon Musk. And one guy I would like to see and know more about is our own mayor here in the city of Dallas, Eric Johnson. Now, Eric Johnson, barely a Republican. He just made the switch a little over a year ago. But I was in newsrooms. I was working at a TV station when he came into power, and we would get his press releases. And most press releases don't get reported on at all. But in the background, I could see, it was like, this guy's not much of a Democrat. In fact, he was very against the defund the police movement, and he pushed a bunch of policies like cutting spending and wasteful projects. It's like, wait a second, is this guy one of us? And when he converted, when Eric Johnson publicly came out and said he's switching parties, I was not shocked. I was like, this guy's barely a Democrat to begin with. That's amazing. Kind of saw this coming. That's fantastic news. But I would love to see how he performs if he gets his turn at the media cycle. Because Wesley Hunt, he's working for it and whatnot. But if you're going to end up on Bill Maher, that's not you just being a scrappy guy who's, making his way in the world, working hard and staying in school. No, there's some people who are connected that wanted to see that made that happen. What happens if they do that with Eric Johnson? And look, speaking to the media helps. That's why Joe Rogan would be so good. Eric Johnson would be so good. That's also why Dr. Phil would be good. Dr. Phil's a native Texan. He's trying to build a media empire over there in Fort Worth. He's got his own little network. What's it called? Merit Media or something to that effect. Oh, man. Can you imagine him at a press conference being asked stupid questions? Why didn't you thank the female pilots? Or Merit Street Media, thank you, Garrett. Or, do you think of your daddy over the other countries or whatever dumb questions we've heard in the last 48 hours? Dr. Phil would blow that out of the water. And he would do it with his cool little Texan accent. Let me tell you something here. Glenn Beck would be another good example for some of the similar reasons. I like him in the fact that just like Elon Musk, Joe Rogan, he's a Texan by choice. He could have moved anywhere on the planet, anywhere in the country. He chose Texas. Why? Because of us, because we live here. And we've built this thing up to be somewhere people want to move to. Steven Crowder's another one. He's originally from Canada, one of the great podcasters. Hell of a comedy career, stand-up comedian, very successful there. Moved over into politics. Decided he's going to make his podcast headquarters where? Here. He would destroy these silly little questions in a press conference, and I look forward to that. We heard all kinds of insults and degrading of Ronald Reagan. Oh, he's just some actor. He's just some media guy. Yeah, that kind of worked out in his favor. The ability to communicate your thoughts and ideas very clearly in an entertaining fashion, to not be boring and monotone. And then there's guys who have already had a modicum of success. I think they're ready for the next level. I would like to see it pushed and see if it sticks. Alan West, former congressman who's now head of the Dallas GOP. He's at all kinds of events that I end up at, and he just kills it on his live speeches. I've seen him do many interviews on Fox News. I've even seen him on CNN. Killed it. And then the rising star Brian Harrison out of Midlothian, who me and him have collaborated on the rhino list. If you want to see the list of rhinos in the state legislature in Texas, I collaborated with Brian Harrison. We put that up on WBAP.com. If you want a link, send me an email. I'll happily give it to you. So that's my short list. What's yours? 800-288-9227. This is Steve in Dallas. You're on WBAP.
Hey there.
Hey there.
Wesley Hunt. You know the name?
Yeah, Wesley Hunt. I just played his audio from when he was on Bill Maher on Friday.
Yeah. No, great guy. An up-and-coming star.
Oh, did you miss the previous segment? Because he's the one who kicked off this whole conversation, so it's kind of great you say that.
Yeah, no, he is. He talked about the next generation, folks that we need to get off the sideline, get them on the field. Yeah,
well, hang on. Now, Steve, here was my concern that I was saying in the last segment. If you missed it, a bunch of other people probably did too, so I'll reiterate it. The people who back John Cornyn, the people who donate to him and the powers that be, the string pullers, the puppet masters, they're dropping John Cornyn and moving over to Wesley Hunt. Does that concern you? Because if the establishment of the GOP political machine prefers Wesley Hunt over Ken Paxton, I see that as a demerit, a red flag, not a positive.
Well, let's take it how we can get it. Let's don't be too particular about how the sausage is made. Let's get a good guy in there that should be there anyway. You know, the fact that the establishment wants him in there, well, let's call that a coin flip, a neutral.
Right. All right. Well, good. Steve in Dallas, you actually heard of Wesley Hunt and have positive take on him. This is what I'm talking about. I'll keep an eye on this. That's going to be super important because just like the primary that happened in New York City this week, that's pretty much the real election.
New York City!
Which I don't care too much about who's the mayor of New York. It doesn't affect me very much. Doesn't affect you very much. But it is going to give us a fun circus to watch from down here and give us a lot to talk about. In fact, I'll bring up one of the sound bites from him, one of the big issues of him, and he wants government grocery stores. Are you serious? Kamala just proposed that last year in the election, yet she had to drop it in a week because it was such a bad idea. And it's just assumed that whoever this guy is going to steamroll his way into the city hall in the general election. However, there's a couple of exceptions that you've seen recently in your lifetime. Michael Bloomberg, who, he had a Republican title next to his name. He didn't govern as a Republican. He's damn sure isn't a Republican now, but people went to the ballot box in the city of New York and voted for a guy with an R next to his name. It's not impossible. And before that, Rudy Giuliani, mayor of New York. Now, he actually, not just having the R next to his name, actually governed as a Republican. It was wildly successful. He cleaned up Times Square. He got rid of all the, crack addicts and prostitutes and peep shows and hookers, and turned it into someplace that by the first time I was ever in New York City, I walked in Times Square at like 4 a.m. It was nice. It was clean. It was safe. There wasn't criminals. There wasn't pimps. There wasn't prostitutes. There wasn't needles on the ground. It looked like the perfect tourist experience. Bright lights. None of the bulbs were out. Everything was clean. Cops were present. It was great. New Yorkers remember that. So I'm not 100% sure that this guy is going to win just because he got the Democrat primary, but the early polling shows that not only is the Democrat going to win, but he's even a little more fringy and a little more dedicated to the Team Blue economic mantra than your average Democrat voter. Here he is in a campaign video talking about his plan for state-owned grocery stores.
Grocery prices are out of control. The cost of eggs and milk has skyrocketed. Some stores are even using dynamic pricing, jacking up the cost over the course of a day depending on what they can get away with. It doesn't need to be this way. I'm Zahran Mamdani, and as mayor, I will create a network of city-owned grocery stores. It's like a public option for produce. We will redirect city funds from corporate supermarkets to city-owned grocery stores, whose mission is lower prices, not price gouging. These stores will operate without a profit motive or having to pay property taxes or rent, and will pass on those savings to you.
It's like a 17-year-old just read a book for the first time. What? If this plan works, you don't think we would have tried it already? You don't think it's been tried 1,000 times in 1,000 different locations and failed on its face? Mr. Zoltan or whatever, Zamfir, Zoran, what's his name? Sir, why don't you just go look at when this has been tried before and tell me if it worked? Why don't you just go look at anywhere on planet Earth where this has worked? This is how you end up with bread lines in Russia, in the Soviet Union. This is how you end up with bread lines in Poland and Romania and Hungary for all that. This is how they ended up with bread lines in Venezuela. We've heard this before. And in fact, something similar to this was tried just down the street. When I was doing the morning show down in Waco, like 10 years ago, there was some other socialist group, Mission Waco, which there's a bunch of other missions in different towns. They just act like it's a local grassroots activist network, but it's really just centralized socialist activism. They started this in Waco about 10 years ago. I guess it was 2017 maybe when it finally opened, but they got a whole bunch of money appropriated from the taxpayers. They got some grants from D.C. to keep it afloat, and they opened their state-owned, their state-run grocery store called the Jubilee Market in Waco. It never turned a profit. I went there several times. It was terrible. It's exactly what you expect. It's the DMV for food. It's not great. The produce stinks. There's flies everywhere. Some of the light bulbs are out. There's no decoration on the wall. The people who work there are not very helpful. They're not even wearing uniforms. They're all just sitting around looking at their phones. They have no interest in helping you because they are not controlled by the profit motive. They get to make money. They stay in business by getting other politicians to appropriate them more money in the next bill. So the customer service was terrible. The product was terrible. The availability of it, there were a bunch of empty shelves and they would run out of stuff all the time. Or if they had ribs, they would have ribs through the end of the day and then they wouldn't have them again for another couple of weeks. Oh, I kept up with them. I followed their social media. They closed earlier this year, actually. They closed about the time USAID said we're not going to be sprinkling billions of dollars on political activist groups anymore. What a coincidence. So even here when it's been tried in the exact same fashion in which he's just described, happened in Waco, already failed. And this whole price control thing, has this never been tried before in America? Nixon didn't try to freeze the wages. Did Jimmy Carter try and freeze the price of gas? What happened when they did that? Did everyone just get cheaper gas? Or did we have shortages? What happened when they tried that in Venezuela? Did they get rid of hunger, or were they just a year or two away from having to break into the zoo to eat the animals? This doesn't work everywhere it's promised. But who does promise stuff like this? Is this a free market capitalist approach to economic planning? Or is this a fascist approach to economic planning? You hear the concern about fascism and authoritarianism. What is price controls other than fascism and authoritarianism? What is it? because it's certainly not free market, it's certainly not capitalist. But they tried this in Venezuela just 10 years ago. I have a report from NPR 10 years ago. I'm not going to play the whole thing, but rest assured, it wasn't working out well.
We go now to Venezuela, which will have legislative elections next month. And the ruling Socialist Party there is expected to take a beating. That's in part because of food shortages and complicated rules about when and where people can buy things.
And it's exactly what you think. If you make the food cheaper at this one store than everywhere else, then everyone's going to rush in, turn around, buy everything that's on the shelves, and then turn around and sell it for a profit right outside the store. Okay, so how do you keep people from doing that? You ration it. Okay, so if you ration it, you can only buy 2 of these at a time. Can they just come in every day and get it? No, then you can only come on a certain day. So you have rationed food on certain days. Availability is scarce. When you get there, half the shelves are empty anyway, so you try and get 3 cans of sardines. They only let you leave with 2. And then you walk out and you're still starving. But hey, at least it was cheap. At least those evil rich people didn't make a profit off of you. You really got them there. So I'm not going to fight the guy. I'm not going to go histrionic or get upset or even spend a whole lot of time on the show about it. I'm just warning you, we're about to get a lot of fun stories coming out of New York City. If this guy wins and can somehow get some of these just terrible, just god-awful economic catastrophes put into place, I'm almost looking forward to it. If not for the human suffering of my fellow Americans, I would be all just clapping my hands off, waiting for this to come asunder. And do what it does every time. Fail spectacularly. Coming up next, Dallas ISD is feeding children through the summer breakfast and lunch. Dallas ISD is giving free breakfast and lunch to kids over the summer. Am I heartless for thinking this is a ridiculous program? I know to people who are just new to listening to other media sources, and maybe you just accidentally trickled over to talk radio for the first time, I can understand why you would think that sounds heartless. I get it. Because I turn on the TV and every time there's one of these programs, there's no questions about it. They're, oh, isn't this a great program? In fact, almost all the things that are proposed by your political betters, it's a great program. Oh, look, they're building a new park. Oh, look, it's a new bike path. Oh, look, they're restoring this old theater. Oh, look, they're adding a new art installation in the median of some road. Oh, look, they're going to make another choo-choo train from here to Houston. Doesn't matter how much it costs. Doesn't matter whether or not it's effective. Doesn't matter what the results are. It always gets praised. Oh, look, we're going to do this new Head Start program. Oh, look, we're going to do this new educational program. They never go back and look at the results. You never get an apology when your money's wasted. And in this one, this is some mind-blowing stuff. Because the Department of Education, and really, let's take it down to a smaller level. Public schooling was meant so everyone could have access to education, no matter how poor your parents were. You could still end up in school, even if your parents couldn't afford to send you to school. Well, damn it, it's so important. We've got to steal money from everyone else who happens to own property and pay for this whole elaborate system. Now, we all look at it now and say, well, public schooling has clearly pulled the bar down quite a bit. Before public schooling, if you graduated high school, you could probably read in Latin. You realize you could read like Virgil in the native Latin? How many people graduating high school last month even know who Virgil is or have even read him in English? You probably have to go Google it. And I'm not insulting you. I'm just saying. And so you've seen all these other things be added on to schooling. I'm going to say something really unpopular here. All the sports, totally unnecessary. Not part of a real serious educational system. It's fun. Don't get me wrong. Yes, you can learn a whole lot of good life lessons by being in a team sport. But that's totally not necessary. Look how much money we spend on these stadiums and the pads and the bus trips and the bands and the entertainment and the lights and the PA system and the giant jumbotron in the end zone. All that money could have gone to Bunsen burners, could have gone to graphing calculators, could have gone to better teachers or programs for, I don't know, something academic. I mean, it could be robotics. It could be something healthcare related. It could be a new nursing program. But we have some really whacked out priorities that have inculcated themselves into the education system because it's now a public system. And the one that bothers me the most is the idea that it's just being turned into a welfare delivery mechanism. I don't like the idea that we have free lunch in school during school. Well, James, do you want those kids to starve? Absolutely not. But that's not my job. That's not the taxpayer's job. That's not anyone else's job but their parents. If you have a problem with a kid starving during the day, you might want to go have a chat with their mom and dad. You might want to go have a chat with whoever their legal guardian is. That's their job. That's not my job. Oh, but kids do better when they have free lunch. Do they? Show me the report. Because if that's the case, then why are our scores going down? The more free lunch we give out, the more reduced lunch, the more freebies we have, the worse the scores get. I don't think the data's on your side. It might be the only good meal that they get all year. Really? Go look at the meals. You think that's the most nutritious, awesome meal that they could possibly have? You're not eating out of the produce section at Whole Foods. You're still eating a mass-produced factory food assembly line lunch. Not that it's terrible. Hey, I ate it every day. I went to public school. I love that nasty food. But now the school system with declining scores, with terrible scores, with terrible SAT scores, with terrible discipline, we now are concerned we're using scarce education dollars and resources to feed them year round. What are food stamps for? What are all these other programs for? Why do we need to do this in the schools? My food stamps don't already cover that? The taxes I'm paying for that? I have a real problem with this. And the parents, too, I can't blame you if you're taking advantage of free food from schools. But if you're the kind of parent that when school's out, you're just going to let your kids starve, we don't need to send you a sandwich. We need to send CPS to come question whether or not you're fit to be a parent. At some point, can we expect sentient adults to take care of their own children without the taxpayer having to foot the bill? Is that asking too much personal responsibility? Because that seems the bargain basement of personal responsibility. Not even feeding yourself, feeding your kid. If you're not willing to do that, I'm not putting up a program to sponsor your sloth and your irresponsibility. 800-288-9227. This is David in Fort Worth. You're on WBAP. What do you think about free lunches during the summer?
Well, I was helping administer a program. I'm a retired teacher out of one of the suburban districts. I was helping administer a program where we were doing something very similar to this. We were giving the kids that were on free and reduced lunch, giving their parents a bag of food once a week that they could take home to be able to help feed the kids. Then I got very, very disgusted with it because I started finding out from other family members and from other people that what those families were doing was taking that home, and then dad would use it for his lunch since he's the breadwinner, or grandmother that had a dietary problem was eating that food, and the kids just kind of had to catch whatever they could. And I didn't want to have anything to do with it after that. I was like, nope, not involved. Don't want to have anything to do.
Yeah, and, that's even beyond the philosophical objections I have that it's, not the taxpayer's responsibility to feed all the kids all the time, even during the summer through the school system. But, in the practical and from the pragmatic standpoint, it doesn't even work that well. In fact, Dave, could you imagine a less efficient way to get scarce charitable food to the kids who need it the most?
Oh, yeah. And if the kids were eating it, I could maybe see that, okay, yeah, this is something that if it's there, we can go ahead and give it to them. And it was good stuff. You'd have several pieces of fruit, some cups of, like yogurt cups and stuff like that. It was good stuff, but, we were finding out that it was being used for other people in the family, not for the kids.
Well, Dave,
and I just said, nope, I'm not in it anymore.
Dave in Fort Worth, your experience was a valuable addition to the show. Thank you so much for calling, sir. What do you think about this program for Dallas ISD giving free breakfast and lunch to kids over the summer? Am I heartless for thinking this is ridiculous? 800-288-9227. It's News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM, WBAP.
The James Show Podcast.